Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to continue looking at volume 1 of Rabbi Avigdor Miller's new translation and commentary of Duties of the Mind, based on, well, it's not based, it's a new translation and commentary on the HaRav, Duties of the Heart, originally written by Rabbi Bakr ibn Pakuda in Spain in the 11th century, and is one of the most potent and powerful works in the Jewish world. Anybody embarking on a serious regime of actually going through and learning this work, whether it be in this 2-volume pocket-size original Duties of the Heart edition, translated from the Arabic, was translated from Arabic into Hebrew and then to Hebrew and English, you're doing a great thing. You're doing a really great thing for yourself. But if you want to sort of go above and beyond that and get a version of that work, which will soon be compiled in a 10-volume set of the Rabbi Avigdor Miller series, you're doing even better. And because this is a Haredi Jew, he's actually a Cohen that lived right up until the early 2000s. And back in the 80s, he did a series of lectures that were recorded on audio cassette, and they're in the process of being sort of transcribed into a running written commentary of the HaRav, which the rendering is Duties of the Mind, because the heart and the mind are to be echad, they're to be one. And so we're up to part 6. We're still in part 6, entitled Positive Mitzvot of the Mind. And we are looking at the concept, we're starting out looking at the concept of being humble. So, be humble. When you realize that you're always in the presence of HaShem, you will be humble before Him and you will never insult a fellow Jew. Your entire behavior will be different and you are then a true anav, a true humble person. So if you continually harbor in your mind that you're standing before HaShem, and HaShem is the creator of everything. In fact, He created everything from nothing. He is beyond comprehension in terms of who He is as a being. He's not, it's not like we can comprehend HaShem in human terms and think that He is sort of the son of another God, and there's a whole family of gods that are on the same level. No, there's nothing that we can compare Him to. He is anything and everything. And yet He has decided to create an environment and create a sentient species of people in that environment, thus being man, and He's willfully entered into a willing relationship with them, and He's created an environment for a temporal time where man lives in that temporal existence, and he can accrue merits by way of free will to enhance his relationship with Hashem through his desire and His will. So it's up to us if we want to propel ourselves toward Hashem or propel ourselves away and be taken by all the distractions and all the temptations of the world, or we want to rise above all that and take a swipe at eternity. And Hashem willing, that swipe will be successful because we will have divine assistance, Siyata Dishmaya, we'll have divine help. The concept of anav, humility, in HaRav differs from that in other sefarim and other holy works, which associate anava primarily with humility towards one's fellow man. In HaRav, a person is humble when he feels he is standing before Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu knew that he was superior to other people, as the Torah states, looking at Devarim 34:10, Deuteronomy. And never again did a prophet like Moshe arise in Israel. But the Torah also states, now the man Moshe was exceedingly humble, more than any person, according to Bamidbar, Numbers 12:3. Now the man Moshe was exceedingly humble, more than any person. This suggests that Moshe is humility derived not primarily from his attitude to his fellow man, but from his awareness of Hashem, before whom he was completely nichna, he was completely humbled. Moshe was more aware of Hashem than anybody else on the face of the earth. Therefore, he was the greatest anav of all. And so you might say, okay, well, that awareness came by the fact that he actually went up to the mountain and spent time with him face to face, as it were. No, my friend. This was prior to his ascending the mountain. He had Hashem on the radar from the very outset, from the time that he fled from Mitzrayim. And, it was, he saw the reality of Hashem. He saw the architect behind everything that he sees as being a reality, a shining reality, a bit like Avram Avinu, who in his generation, nobody else thought like he did. And he knew that there was something behind all creation, that creation wasn't made up of competing deities, but that there was one supreme deity over all. And so Moshe Rabbeinu really had instilled in himself this outlook that Hashem, there was this supreme being that was running the world, and you could find favor with him if your code of conduct and your certain the way you carried yourself and the decisions that you made in the short period of time you have in this life that you have on earth, you can improve that relationship. You can interact with him, and you can have success. You can have what true success is. Moshe Rabbeinu chose not to compare himself to the best of all men that were on the face of the earth, but he compared himself rather to the Kadesh Baruch Hu, to the Holy and Blessed Be, which is like just out of this universe in terms of superiority and vastness compared to a humble human being, which Moshe Rabbeinu was. And so this is what we've got to learn, that it depends who we compare ourselves to. Like if you're going to start comparing yourself to, maybe you're particularly good at a particular thing, you're good at something that not many people are good at. Well, if you compare yourself to all these people that aren't good at that, you're going to think, be puffed up and go, oh, I'm pretty amazing. But if you compare yourself to another time and another generation where everybody was perhaps good at that thing, you're just, one of the guys. You're a run-of-the-mill person. It's a bit like Noah, who was righteous in his generations. In the time before the deluge, the flood, the world was particularly wicked. It was profoundly wicked, and yet Moshe, in the time of the golden era of the Beit HaMikdash under Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, there were a lot of people who were various high degrees of righteousness that it would have made Moshe look like just one of the guys. And so it was really just in the face of the people in his era that he was righteous, compared to people in an era of righteousness and success and a golden era, he would just be one of many. And so if we can remember that and just go, listen, it's fine to take pride in yourself, but not to sort of lord over other people and make out that, you're some sort of superior entity. In fact, you should be the most humble among everybody because of your superior qualities, because Hashem has imbued you with such, and given you the strength to make the right decisions. Number 9. So we're up to number 9, looking at the positive mitzvot of the mind. To fear him, it is a mitzvah to be afraid of Hashem. That isn't taught enough. Go and find a teaching about fearing Hashem. You'll find it, but they're hard to come by. There's plenty that teach you the love of Hashem, but very few out there, good ones, that teach that you actually have to be afraid of him. Sometimes people play that down and says, oh, it's just like an awe, it's just having an awe of him, not actually being afraid. Don't downplay it. Don't sort of try and wash it clean with that false thinking. No, it's actually being afraid of him. A lot of people do that. They go, oh, well, it doesn't really mean being fearful of him. Yes, it does. It does. It actually does. This can happen in various ways. One way is yirat ha'onesh, to fear punishment, as the Torah says regarding Aaron HaKohen. He shall not come at all times in the sanctuary so that he should not die. Even though Aaron was a man of great piety and sanctity, he was deemed necessary to threaten him with death if he failed to obey. The implication is that there can never be enough fear of punishment Even the greatest person must understand that there is a severe punishment for disobedience to HaShem, and that this fear must be with him always. And again, that brings up the verse in, let me get it, in John, that's always marched out to hose down. John 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. And so, I don't know if many of you know this, but Aaron was partook in the construction of the golden calf to buy time to try and waylay the heir of Rav from, doing anything wrong. And this was a disaster. It didn't work out for him. And so he felt a lot of shame over what he'd done. But HaShem knew in his heart that he wasn't part of this false worship team, as it were. And so, Aaron, did feel that, this, what he'd done was a great transgression. And, people often say, well, if you fear punishment, that means your love isn't perfect. Well, guess what? Here's a reality check for you. No, it isn't. But it's getting there. And this is what people don't understand about 1 John 4:18, is that this is a type of love of HaShem that is very remote. There's very few people that reach that particular waypoint. But that doesn't mean that people who are functioning with a relationship with Hashem that still fear his punishment aren't worthy to be numbered among those that are deemed saved. Even the greatest person must understand that there is a severe punishment for disobedience to Hashem, and that this fear must be with him always. And that's not to say that his relationship becomes so locked in with Hashem that he's rarely confronted with a temptation to fear. And so if he's rarely confronted with a temptation to commit a sin, then he's rarely confronted with the reality of the punishment, because he just doesn't have the desire to be led away to do anything to endanger that relationship. So rarely comes to his mind fear of punishment, because he rarely does anything to entertain that particular temptation, because he's not interested in it. He's more interested in being locked with his solid relationship with the Kadesh Baruch Hu. So in that regard, he doesn't fear punishment, because he doesn't have any temptation to go and do something that is counter to his relationship with Hashem. It's a very interesting subject. In addition to Yirat HaOnesh, there is Yirat HaOmimut, Yirat HaRemimut, which is awe before the greatness of Hashem. This concept is dealt with at length later in Kavod HaLevavot. Walking down the street. To be afraid of Hashem is a very important mitzvah, which is mentioned many times in the Torah, as in the command, Deuteronomy, Devarim 10:20. You shall fear Hashem your Elohim, and therefore, even when you walk down the street, you shall feel yourself to be in danger, and you should think, I need Hashem to protect me. This is, as the Gemara says in Tractate Shabbos 32a, when a man goes out into the street, let him imagine that he has been given over to the officer of the court. At that moment, being in dread of any unforeseen hazard and hoping for Hashem's protection, you will fulfill a mitzvah of fearing Hashem, Yirat Hashem. So here are these people saying, you shouldn't fear Hashem. They go to the local supermarket or shopping plaza in the middle of summer, and there are people walking around almost half naked. If it's on the Gold Coast, you merely just have to walk out the front of the shops, and you'll see women walking around with surfboards, a surfboard under one arm, and two small pieces of garment barely covering two parts of the body. And they're having a look. They go, oh my gosh, okay. And so, they're doing whatever they can. Maybe they're married, maybe they're sort of, with their significant other, and they're trying not to make it obvious. And, this is something that, they want to put across to the world. This doesn't bother me. This doesn't bother me. Now, if you don't go out into a public domain with the attitude that you've been given over to the officer of the court, then what is there stopping you from looking at these particular immodestly dressed women and deriving pleasure from it? And the average Christian on the street will say, oh, I can look and derive pleasure from it. That doesn't mean I'm going to commit adultery. I'm just looking at them and marveling at their beauty. Okay, let's see how that goes if you run that one by your wife. It's not going to go too well from you. But if you go out with the attitude that when a man goes into the street, let him imagine that he is given over to the officer of the court, the first thing you do is you will look away. Okay, fine. You see it. You're just looking normally. You try and sort of look, 2 meters ahead. But okay, it's caught in the periphery. The officer of the court, and you look away. But if you don't set up that parameter before you even go out into the street, into a public domain, then you're on the chopping block, and you're ready for it. You're ready to go on the chopping block, literally. So the idea is that you're like, okay, Hashem wouldn't want me to be looking at that and deriving pleasure from that because this person is my wife. This person's obviously got some sort of mental problem that they get walking out in the street dressed like that. And it's unlawful to do that, but we're living in an unlawful age. And so I have to prepare myself before I go out into a public domain. And people will try and convince you, oh, you've got no self-control, da-da-da-da. It is all bupkis. It is all bupkis, all nonsense. These people say, oh, they can dress however they want. No, it shouldn't affect you. That is a load of rubbish. Hashem has constructed man and a woman in a certain way, making them beautiful entities, wondrously and fearfully made, that it is in our DNA that we are to have, that is to have an effect on us to perpetuate the species. And by making out that it's no big deal, you are actually calling into question Hashem's great design. But a lot of people don't think deeply enough into the subject as that. They just kind of keep it all, you're too extreme. Let them explain themselves in Gehenna like that, or before the divine council like that. That's too extreme. They're in for the shock of their lives. At that moment, being in dread of an unseen hazard and hoping for Hashem's protection, you are fulfilling the mitzvah of fearing Hashem, you're at Hashem. When you consider any kind of improper behavior, but then you think that Hashem will take retribution from you if you commit the act, you are doing a mitzvah that the Torah has commanded. Now, you go out, a woman catches your eye that is immodestly dressed, really immodestly dressed, and you're not in the next instance in your mind drifting toward a scenario where you are in, let's just say, very compromising situation with that woman in your mind. And then you begin to go through a scenario with that. And this could take seconds. And so already in the world of thought, you are entering into an act of immorality with this person in your mind. And it can happen in a matter of seconds. And you've committed the act. And according to the world of thought, you've committed an act of fornication. Or if you're married, you've committed, an act of adultery. Adultery. So you got to go, hang on, I've got to guard myself against that. Because the world of thought is as real as the world of speech and action. But I'm not tiring myself in the world of thought with the armor and the protection that I need before I go out, because I won't imagine that I've been given over to the officer of the court. So if I won't imagine that I've been given over to the officer of the court on my little expedition into the public domain, then I'm ready to be slaughtered by whatever walks its way out from the beach or from a house or from a shop or down the road, because I just don't have that mindset already in place. So I'm constructing a platform in which I could do anything. I'm going out sabotaging myself because I won't put myself into the hands of the officer of the court when I'm conducting myself in public. Because I'm not taking on the fear of HaShem. I'm not going out with the prerequisite of the fear of HaShem when I go into a public place. So if I don't have the fear of HaShem, I don't really have any incentive to adhere to anything in terms of what I think about. It's just a thought. I didn't do it. Well, flies in the face of what Rebbe Yeshua taught. Are you a follower of Yeshua? Or not? But it's a world that no one can see. So a person can say or do anything. But we'll only get away with it for the duration of a lifetime. And then we'll have to answer to everything that we did in the world of thought as whatever we did wrong, just as we did in the world of speech and the world of action. It's interesting, isn't it? Number 10, to be frightened and ashamed because he is looking at our public or our private behaviors. A person should train himself to be aware that Hashem is watching him at all times, as is written in Jeremiah 23:24. Can a man hide himself in secret places and I not see? So, a person even a Christian is aware of the fact that Hashem sees all. But when you think of in terms of he sees your thoughts, generally, most people don't actually think into it that deeply. They just think, well, he can see whatever it is you say, so, be careful what you say. He can see whatever you do, so be careful what you do. But generally, there is no exhaustive teaching or training a person to actually how to think properly, especially when a person is confronted with something that he sees. A man is optically stimulated, whereas a woman is emotionally stimulated. So a man, straight away, his eyes are on, sitting on the fence, ready to reel in anything that would be enticing. And so a man has to combat his own eyes. Getting dressed, if you are careful to keep yourself covered up while dressing and undressing because you know Hashem is looking, it is training for observing the mitzvah of fearing his presence. Now, many people, just me reading that now and hearing that, would say, that's too extreme. You're expecting me to be concerned about the times that I'm naked even within my home when I'm having a shower? Well, maybe minimize the time that you are actually standing naked from the time you get undressed to going in the shower to the time that you come out, dry yourself and get reclothed. Maybe it's just for you. It's just a case of minimizing that time. Will you do that for Hashem? Will you have the desire and the love for Hashem to reduce that time? Okay, not eliminate it. No, obviously we're not talking Rabbi Yitzhak, the Baba Sali. We're not talking Baba Sali levels, where he used to actually go in the water fully clothed and then would come out fully clothed. Barely allow the sides of his face to actually be visible ever. Okay, we're not talking that level. We're not on the level of the Baba Sali, but at least do something. Start to acknowledge the fact when you are, in the home, that you can't just walk around immodestly in the home. Like we were learning in Pirkei Avot in the last video. You can't commit an act of Chilul Hashem even in private. And you say, well, how can it be a Chilul Hashem if nobody's watching in private? Hashem's watching. And if you're doing a behavior that wouldn't be acceptable in public because people know that you follow the God of the Jews or you're Jewish, then why practice it in private? Because the chances are you practice it long enough in private, you'll end up doing it in public as well. You will not indulge in silly behavior, kilut rosh, such as laughing with loud guffos. You know that Hashem is looking. As David HaMelech says, according to Tehillim 14:2, from heaven Hashem gazed down upon mankind. People send you a meme. Sometimes it's inappropriate. People send people all these types of funny things. People are laughing hysterically. You hear laughter from other bedrooms with closed doors. You're hearing, this guttural laughter. People are laughing at, a really funny meme or something. Always be aware of Hashem. Always be aware of Hashem. Always being aware of Hashem is a very great achievement, but even to be aware of Hashem's presence for a moment is a mitzvah. If you think of these things from time to time, you are always doing mitzvot. It is a mitzvot even for a minute, and if you do it more often, you are doing more mitzvot. Not only does Hashem watch your physical behavior, He looks into our minds and our thoughts. When a person has an unworthy thought, he is ashamed because he knows that Hashem knows his thoughts. So he tries to think only the best thoughts. An example of an unworthy thought is having negative feeling towards another person, as the Torah states in Vayikra 19:17. You shall not hate your brother in your mind. Hashem looks into your mind and sees. Okay, so these are people that show people, a lot of respect and a lot of, time and, have a pleasant attitude, but inwardly they hate the person's guts, And somebody might argue, well, at least, I'm not being rude to the person. I might dislike him, but I'm being nice to him. Listen, if you are angry with the person, if you have a problem with the person, you owe it to that person to find time to take them aside and tell them what the issue is you have with them, because then they've got a chance at rectifying it. If you hate the person and don't do anything to let that person know why you don't genuinely, lawfully dislike them, then you're worse than that person, because you're allowing that person to go to the grave without any chance of knowing what it is that they have to fix so that you won't hate them anymore. Now, I know there's exceptions to rules. There's always an exception to the rule. You'll have a person, you've done it many, many times before and it's fallen on deaf ears. Okay, that's obviously a different scenario. If you've done it many, many times before and they just throw it in your face, okay, that's fine. But, you don't portray yourself to other people that you actually like the person when inwardly you don't. You actually hate them. You can say, I don't like the person, and this is the reason why I don't like the person. Well, that's Lashon HaRav. No, it's not Lashon HaRav, because I've got valid reasons why I don't like the person. And if I don't tell you why I don't like them and warn you why I don't like them, then I'm putting a stumbling block before the blind. Number 11, yearn to gain His goodwill. It should be an ambition to always seek favor in the eyes of Hashem. As it says, to fulfill your will, my Elohim is my desire. This is also a mitzvah. It is like a child who wants to please his parent and earn his favor. So we want to gain Hashem's favor. People say, well, you can't sort of, do anything by your own efforts. Well, that's not true. That's not true. Otherwise, why do anything? So of course we want to please Hashem. There's nothing wrong in wanting to please the creator of the universe. Obviously there's something wrong if you want to please men over Hashem. But if you want to please Hashem, whoa, that's a good place to start. Number 12, to dedicate our actions to His name. Whenever we perform an act, especially if it is a mitzvah, we should have in mind that we are doing it because it's what Hashem wants. And somebody says, oh, listen, thanks for praying for me. Or somebody says your positive words caused this to work out, and you say, no, it wasn't my positive words, it's Hashem. Hashem did it. So be always quick to give Hashem the glory wherever you can. Never take the glory for yourself. Somebody says, listen, I want to thank you for what you said to me. It really made the situation I was facing a lot more easy for me to bear, and it actually went well. And I think it was your good thoughts and your goodwill that caused the situation to actually go well. You just jump in and you go, no, that wasn't me, that was Hashem. You can just point to the sky and says, no, it wasn't me, it was, and point up. Even if you do that, you're quickly showing the person that you're dedicated to Hashem. And you want to give Hashem all the glory. You don't take all the glory. You don't want to take any of the glory. You don't take 1% of the glory for yourself. You want to give it all to Hashem. Number 12, to dedicate our actions to His name. Whenever we perform any act, especially if it's a mitzvah, we should have in mind that we're doing it because it's what Hashem wants. Did I just read that? Probably did. Yeah, I did. Doing this, you get to hear it twice. Doing Hashem's mitzvah, when you put on tefillin, you should be thinking of Hashem. Your thoughts should be, am I doing His mitzvah? And even when you're eating, you should have in mind the intention of the kavanah that you're eating in order to have the strength to serve Hashem. Even though you may want to eat for your own reasons, such as to satisfy your hunger, you're fulfilling a mitzvah. If you add this thought of eating to more effectively serve Hashem, the greater priority you give to dedicating your eating to the service of Hashem, the greater will be that your mitzvah. So, okay, sure, you're hungry, you're eating because you're hungry, but if you eat and you're eating for the sake of Hashem in terms of you're going to use the being sated by the food and feeling good about being sated, and obviously the food has nutrients, it's going to give you strength and energy, you're going to, well, I can be a greater servant of Hashem. I'm going to be more on my game to glorify Hashem by having a full stomach than being in hunger, where I can't fully concentrate and I can't be on my best, be the best I can be in my service of Hashem. But by eating, I can be. So you start to think a little bit like that. Similarly, when you go to sleep, you should have in mind that you are doing so to have energy to serve Hashem the next day, and you should strive to reach the ideal state in which the service of Hashem is the sole intention of the things that you do. So sleeping, eating, working, even performing your husbandly duties in a marriage, it's all for the service of Hashem. Teaching your kids how to ride a bike, how to play chess, how to swim, it's all for the sake of Hashem. To the extent that you're able to have such kavanah, such spiritual concentration with everything you do, you're fulfilling the mitzvah of the Torah with that kavanah. 13, to learn to love Hashem. The author discusses this challenging mitzvah at length in chapter 10 in Havat Hashem, number 14. So that'll be in a later chapter. So, there's a whole chapter on the love of Hashem for those that are, always going back to 1 John 4:18. I don't want to make out that I'm against, I'm certainly not telling you that love of Hashem has no place. It's a mitzvah to love Hashem, of course. But I'm just trying to pull back on the enormous pressure and force that has been brought to bear against the notion of fearing him, because without having fear of him, there's no wisdom, there's no nothing, there's no love, actually. Verse 14, to learn to love Hashem in order to bring us closer to him. This mitzvah teaches us to learn to love all Jews who observe the Torah. So that's a big one. Torah observant Jews, Orthodox Jews, you've got to learn to love them and look at them like they're treasures. You just have to, guys. You have to change it all around. You have to change the way you look at the Orthodox Jewish world. Okay, they don't acknowledge Yeshua as the Messiah, and many of them make fun of him and whatever. It'll pass. But, a blindness has been given to the Jews, and it's by divine decree. But the fact of the matter is that they're more serious about the Torah than any other race of people on the face of the earth. That should be enough to get you to be in awe of them. Hashem doesn't care if you believe in him or if you believe in the Messiah or if you believe in the Torah. But as soon as you start to say that you love the nation of Israel, and that is referring to the observant demographic of the nation of Israel, that gets Hashem's attention like nothing else. Because that's the object of his affections as well. And you're saying, I love what Hashem loves. And then Hashem says, okay, I want to hang out with that person. To love Hashem, we must learn to love those who love him. The more we love those who love Hashem, the closer we become to him. And that's the reality that the Orthodox Jewish world, they're the people, they're the demographic, they're the people on the face of the earth that love Hashem the most. Yes, even more than the Messianic world. Do you want me to say that again? Even more than the Messianic world. I've been involved in the Messianic world for over 20 years. And I've seen its good side, I've seen its bad side, I've seen all the sides in between. And I can tell you, you can shout, I love the Yeshua as the Messiah until the cows come home. But the reality is the Orthodox Jew are the ones who exhibit a love for Hashem to the greatest degree beyond any other group, even the Messianic world. And that's a reality. That is a shining reality. And if you're upset with me and you don't like that, you're going to unsubscribe or whatever, I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. Yeah, but they reject Yeshua. Yes, they do. That's not always going to be the case. And the Messianic world have had a terrible 20 years. A terrible 20 years. It's a wonder they still exist. The Orthodox Jewish world haven't been perfect either. They've done a few things wrong as well. They've got beaten up for it. We need to lift our game. We need to lift our game. We need to change our attitude. 15, to hate his enemies. This completes a listing of 15 mitzvot of the mind. However, to show that this is not an exhaustive list, the author now states, and other similar mitzvot of those that are not visible in the actions of our limbs because they are mitzvot of the mind. We have seen 15 examples of mitzvot whose observance is not externally visible. Each of these is commanded by the Torah mitzvot d'oraisa, a mitzvah d'oraisa, and is just as much a mitzvah as any of the positive mitzvot of the Torah, mitzvah say. Furthermore, each counts as a mitzvah even when it is observed to a limited degree. And we'll leave it there. That takes us to page 68 and nicely puts us in part 4, a negative mitzvot of the mind. Part 7, because we just read the end of part 6. Part 7, negative mitzvot of the mind. Page 68, that's where we're up to. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, HaShem willing, bye for now.